Thanks all of you for coming here. I have to say this is really just fantastic for me because this is the reading series I always used to come to when I was in grad school and think, yeah, maybe someday. So it's great to be here for that reason, but also because this should have been my pub day. And there are books for sale, so it's my pub day. The reasons too boring to go into, it got pushed back to the 15th. But whatever, so I'm celebrating. So I'm going to tell you very little about my debut novel because I'm reading the very, very, very beginning of the book. However, I did what you're not supposed to do on the way over here, and I trashed what I was going to read. And I said, I'm going to read this instead, but it was way too long, so it's full of scribbles, and who knows what it'll come out like. Anyway, so I had to condense it a bit. So we shall see. The name of the book is The Wild Impossibility, and the nutshell description is that it's about a woman named Kira who begins to, or believes she begins to experience the memories of someone she never met. So it's partly contemporary, partly historical fiction, and the two stories become woven together. None of that matters though, because chapter 1 is just in a moment. So. Kira gripped the wheel, focusing on the road ahead. Berkeley awoke in the cool grasp of water, fog unraveling in treetops and blossoming from the asphalt, rain plummeting earthward in ecstatic downpours, gray blurring the creeping cars and huddled storefronts. California, a place of rain-fueled excess in winter, of choked aridity in summer. You could flee the San Francisco Bay Area, fog-chilled on a summer morning, and end the day watching the sun set in the high desert with sweat beaded on your brow. Wherever you were, the other existence, fog-bound or sunburned, would seem like a dream state, a fantasy you'd only imagined. At the hospital, Kira parked in the employee's lot. 6:45 in the morning and the day already seemed long. In some odd twist of logic, the neonatal intensive care unit was the one place where she could block out the unrelenting memories of her own baby, Amy, the ceaseless thinking, the nagging what-ifs. If the staffing office had allowed it, she'd have worked 7 days a week. After changing into scrubs, Kira checked the assignment board. She had baby Bowen, a 34-weeker, and the first transport if there was one. Good. The more distractions, the better. Shift report on baby Bowen revealed a typical preemie scenario. Born at 29 weeks, now stable on 50% oxygen and moderate ventilator settings. Baby Bowen looked good. Too tiny and too young, but he might make it. Kira was taking an IV in place when the charge nurse zipped past. Transport's 20 minutes out, she called to Kira. The parents are on their way. The team rolled in 5 minutes early. Twin A was a micro-preemie, barely bigger than Kira's hand. Eyelids still fused, skin like tissue, body limp as a waterlogged leaf. 22-weeker, Kira said. Yeah, with a head bleed, the transport nurse said. She gestured to the other transport incubator 6 feet away. Twin B's not much better. 30 minutes later, Twin A was going downhill. The docs would probably suggest discontinuing support for both babies if they lived long enough for the parents to get there. And they might. Some of the babies you'd swear were going to die any second managed to wait for their mothers to arrive. And Kira had seen it happen too often to think it could be chance. Some had known their mother's warmth, held skin to skin against her breast, despite ventilators and tubing, the mother's heartbeat going half-time in a counterpoint to their own. These moments were all the comfort the babies would get in their brief lives, and they seemed to know it. Twin A's heart rate spiraled down. Hang on, baby girl, your mom is coming. 10 minutes later, the parents arrived, swollen eyes raw in oatmeal faces. Standing next to Twin A's bed, they gripped the side rails with colorless fingers. The attending pulled Kira aside. They agreed to a no-code, he said. Kira looked at the Clarksons, ordinary people now being asked to do the extraordinary. Choosing was worse than having the inevitable forced upon you. Would you like to hold her? Kira asked Mrs. Clarkson. Here, let me help you. Baby to breast, if only for a moment. I'll sit with Jessica, the father said, and kissed his wife. I'm here, Jasmine, Mrs. Clarkson whispered. Mommy loves you. She began to cry, a strangled sound. Moments later, the father's sobbing echoed hers. Everything else went quiet, or as quiet as a busy room could get. The parents wouldn't notice. At times like this, the world became small, uninhabited. Kira had sat like Mrs. Clarkson did now, holding her dead baby. This mother wouldn't know anyone else was there. This mother was somewhere else, lost. Going on would seem incomprehensible, the future an impossible thought. Nothing mattered but the agonizing emptiness in her belly and the still body in her arms. A universe of two. 4 hours later, Kira sat in her car and cried. That poor woman would never get over the loss. You never did. Lose a baby and you lose yourself. Blood and tissue, yours and your child's, commingled, then ripped apart. Images flashed through her mind. Twin A, now a tiny bundle in the morgue. Amy's body, a rounded weight against her chest. The grief intensified, bloomed like a hot flash. Kira pressed her hands to her eyes. Her fingers felt oddly warm. Within seconds, her palms burned with a dry, fiery heat that reached for bone. Confused, she looked up, thought something had happened outside because everything was monochrome, the pinked orange of raw salmon. It must be late, already sunset. But no, the color was changing, now warm yellow, now cooler, an acid green. Cortisol rushed through her bloodstream, a junky feeling, hands shaking, staccato thrumming at her temple. She closed her eyes, opened them again. The green was still there, a watercolor wash. Then it faded, leaving only shadows. A girl's voice. Kira jerked around. The back seat was empty. The voice was in her head. You hear them coming and pull his arms tighter around you. You can hardly breathe. Curved against your back, he presses against you. Fear, like Kira has never known. She sees, or senses, because everything is gray, veiled, lines and shapes mere suggestions of three-dimensional objects, a small interior, rough metal walls, a wooden floor. She tries to open her eyes, but they're already open. The voice again, compelling yet flat, a monotone so out of tune with the words spoken that Kira's fear skyrockets. They're closer now. You can hear their voices. Your brother's harsh, your father's softer, dangerous. The door opens and you plead with them, but they ignore you. They drag both of you outside. A pink breath of air, sage-scented and cool. Kira has no bones, no muscles, no sound but her breath, the wash of blood in her ears. Your brother struts like a fighting cock. He's come to right a wrong. Of course he believes that. But there is no wrong but him and your father. You beg them to let him go. You might as well not open your mouth. The gun rises and you scream. In an instant, the scene disappeared. Kira sat shaking, fingers digging into her arms, hair glued to her neck. Breathe, she thought. Don't panic. But no one had dreams at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wide awake in a car. She stepped on the gas, desperate for home, for wine or whiskey, for her comforting bed. She would burrow into the blankets, pretend that what had just happened was nothing to worry about. Cry for Amy and her mother, feel their absence flatten her spine. She would dream, wake her husband Dan with her tossing, ignore the chasm widening between them. These were the new roles.